All right, so last time we sealed up our wood, and now we're ready to actually get pouring. So let's real quick talk about pouring a river table or a cutting board like this using Amazing Deep Pour and kind of how we go about that process. So Amazing Deep Pour is a 2-to-1 product. That means we're going to use 2 parts of the A side to every 1 part of the B side. That's intentional. We make that much thinner, much easier to use for you, especially in larger volumes like this. So speaking of large volumes, we have a pretty big gap here that we're filling with resin. So we need to calculate how much we're actually going to use on this. Now we could pour all the way up this entire thing, but then we're dealing with a lot of material and a lot of exotherm. We don't really want to deal with that. So what we're going to do is do about an inch's worth of this 1 3/4 inch board. So we're going to fill this up an inch. Our dimensions here are about 7 1/4 by 20.5 by an inch thick. So I plugged that into our volume calculator and come up with about 82 ounces worth of resin that we'll actually need. So what I'm going to do is grab one of these buckets and then find a good mark that is 2-to-1 that we can work up to. Let me explain. So we know we're looking for about 82 ounces of resin, and then there's an 80 mark right here. Now we could do some math and kind of get 1/3 of 80 and put more marks on here, but that's really not necessary. Instead, we've got this 3/4 mark right up here and a 96 mark. Since we're looking for about 82 ounces, well, we can jump up to this 96. That gives us 3 quarts, which means we can do 1 quart of the B side and then 2 quarts of the A side and have a nice perfect mixture with an amount that's going to work for a single pour. All right, I've got my amounts measured out appropriately. I'm just going to go ahead and mix this thoroughly according to our mixing instructions. If you haven't watched that video, you should check that out. It'll really help you with the process. All right, our Amazing Deep Pour is all mixed up, but why do I have 2 buckets here? Well, that's because we're doing 2 colors. So I'm going to show you how to put 2 colors into 1 pour at the same time. So what we're going to do is split this 3 quarts that I've got here into 1.5 quarts in each bucket. Everything's doled out. We're going to add some colors. Now, having done this a few times, I know that about 1.5 scoops in this amount, or even just 1 scoop, is going to give me the exact mix I want. That's no opacity. You can't see through the rivers, the 2 sides that we're going to pour. So 1.5 scoops will do the trick. I'm going to use white and black. It's a cool color combination. I'm a big fan of white and black, but also that'll give us an opportunity to kind of swirl in a cool gray in the middle, and I'll show you how to do that too. All right, so I'm going to real quick, I've got my colors mixed. I'm going to just wipe out this mold. If you have some compressed air, go ahead and shoot some of that in there and get all the dust and debris from your space. Now, since we're doing 2 pours, 2 layers of this, right? We're actually going to wait to do our top layer until about 16 hours after this pour. So it's still within that gel time. Those 2 layers are going to fuse together perfectly. And we'll do our final kind of finishing color effects on that second pour. So this is really about getting a good base in there, torching it out, making sure all the air is gone, and combining them in the middle. So let's do that now. Now when you're having 2 colors meet in the middle, the key is to pour at the same time and pour from different buckets at different moments, and you'll see how that middle section kind of goes back and forth. So just take your time and ease your way up to it. I'll stop there, grab the torch out this layer, and we'll pour a little bit more. Pull my buckets out. Really good. Now it looks like we might have a little clump of unmixed powder. Don't panic, that's okay. We're gonna grab a tongue depressor and we're gonna go ahead and scoop that out before we mix together the middle. And like I said, we're not gonna worry so much about the mixture of these 2 because this is the bottom layer. But I am gonna focus on swirling this middle section to get a cool blend. Now take your time with this. The long open time means that these 2 colors, especially where we're mixing them, are gonna kind of naturally combine a little bit. That's okay, that's the look we're going for in this situation. If you wanted to maintain these types of swirls, what you do is you'd wait a little bit longer, more the 8 or 9 hour mark actually with an Amazing Deep Pour like this, and then start to do your swirls. The open time's pretty much gone at that point, and that gel time's kicking in, so all of those swirls that you're putting into the material are gonna hold. All right, so I've mixed these enough to where I feel comfortable with that fun little gray I have in the middle. Again, this is the bottom of the cutting board, so we're not gonna panic about it. But we're gonna wait about 16 hours until it's through that open time, all the way into the gel time, and then we're gonna pour on our second layer. All right, it is the next day. We've waited 16 hours, and that's the perfect amount of time so that our first pour is actually kind of tacky and gummy, and we're ready for our second pour. Keeping it tacky and gummy, well, let me give you a visual of what that looks like. And if I just poke it with the stick, you can see it actually kind of has a taffy consistency. That's what we want. That means this next pour we're gonna do is gonna chemically bond to the one below it, and we're gonna have a solid cutting board. I real quick put a bead of hot glue down. That just means there's not gonna be a bunch of spillover on top of the wood that I have to deal with later. So this is optional. You can also use other things like silicone caulk or something else, but hot glue works just fine. All right, so we're prepped and ready to go. We're just gonna put on our PPE, mix up the same amount as we did last time, split those pours in half, go from there. Now, because we're pouring this big mass into another just gelled mass that we've already poured, you're actually gonna see what looks like these two blobs show up. Don't panic, we're gonna fix those in a minute, but that's okay. That's a part of the pouring process. All right, we've poured our second batch. That's great. I like the color mixture I have right now, but let's say I wanted to adjust it, or I wanted to give a very defined type of pattern. Well, what we're gonna do is we're gonna wait until almost the end of the open time before we come back with a stick and add some cool effects. We do that because once we add those cool effects, we don't want them to disappear. And if we've just poured this, it's still very viscous, so it's not gonna hold those effects. So waiting until the end of the open time, right when it's starting to gel, lets us put in cool effects and then lock them in. So this cutting board is done, and now we just have a lot of waiting to do. 5 to 7 days is the full cure that we wanna wait for this. We're waiting the 5 to 7 days because we're gonna be doing cutting and sanding and a bunch of other stuff to finish this board nicely, and that means we gotta let it fully cure. So next time, next video, we're gonna show you that process as well. Till next time.